The story begins in 1929, and we see a man named Nick sitting inside a psychiatric hospital, taking a session to deal with his painful life events. The doctor encourages him to write everything down so he can release the heavy emotions buried inside his mind.
I don't want to talk about this, doctor.
Then write about it. Write it down.
Nick follows the advice and starts writing his memories in a notebook. As he writes, the story moves into a flashback and takes us back to the year 1922. Nick arrives in New York City with dreams of becoming a successful writer. However, after reaching the city, he begins working at a stock market company instead. He rents a small house on Long Island in a quiet area away from city life. There is a huge mansion right beside his house owned by a millionaire named Gatsby. One day, Nick visits his cousin Daisy, who lives with her wealthy husband Tom. Tom is also Nick's old friend, and he welcomes him into the house. Nick also meets Daisy's friend Jordan, and he immediately becomes fascinated by her beauty and personality. During dinner, the peaceful atmosphere suddenly changes when Tom receives a phone call. He quickly leaves the table to answer, and Daisy quietly follows him. Jordan later reveals to Nick that Tom is secretly involved with another woman living in the city. Nick feels shocked after learning this disturbing truth. After dinner ends, Daisy explains to Nick that her marriage is not going well because Tom continues spending time with different women.
And she said it was a girl. A beautiful little fool.
Later that night, Nick returns home and notices a man standing outside Gatsby's mansion. The man stares toward the glowing green light coming from Daisy's house across the water. Nick realizes the mysterious figure is Gatsby himself. The following day, Nick travels to the city with Tom by train. During the journey, the train briefly stops near a garage owned by a mechanic named George. Tom takes Nick there because he plans to sell George a car. Soon, George's wife Myrtle appears outside. After George walks away, Tom secretly gives Myrtle money and arranges for her to visit the city later. Nick finally understands that Myrtle is the woman Tom is having an affair with. Later, Nick awkwardly sits inside Tom's apartment while Tom and Myrtle spend time together. Nick feels uncomfortable and attempts to leave, but Tom refuses to let him go. Soon, Myrtle's sister arrives with several friends, and they all begin discussing Gatsby and his famous parties. Myrtle's sister offers Nick a strange pill. At first, he refuses, but she tricks him into taking it anyway. After some time, Nick becomes intoxicated and loses control of his senses. The next morning, he wakes up inside his own house without remembering how he returns home. Even then, he notices someone silently watching him from Gatsby's mansion nearby. That same evening, Nick receives an invitation to one of Gatsby's luxurious parties. When he arrives, he feels amazed by the massive celebration filled with wealthy guests, music, and excitement. At the party, Nick meets Jordan once again, and she explains that Gatsby never personally invites anyone. Guests continue spreading rumors because nobody truly knows Gatsby.
Gangsters and governors exchanging telephone numbers, morality protectors.
I've never seen Mr. Gatsby, sir.
Later, a stranger offers Nick a drink and speaks with him. While talking to him, Nick mentions that Gatsby personally invites him to the party. The man suddenly turns around and reveals that he himself is Gatsby. Nick feels surprised because he never expects the millionaire to appear so normal and young. Gatsby behaves politely and warmly encourages Nick to ask him for help whenever he needs anything. Later, Nick admits to Jordan that he imagines Gatsby as an old, wealthy man because he cannot understand how someone so young suddenly becomes rich enough to own such a huge mansion. Soon afterward, one of Gatsby's servants approaches Jordan and quietly informs her that Gatsby wishes to speak with her privately. After the party finally ends, Jordan invites Nick to meet her for tea the following week because she wants to discuss something important with him. Nick later returns home and once again notices Gatsby silently watching him from across the distance through his mansion window. A few days later, Gatsby arrives at Nick's house driving an expensive yellow custom-made car. Gatsby takes Nick to the city for lunch, and during the drive, he begins sharing about his mysterious past. Gatsby explains that he comes from a wealthy family and becomes the only surviving heir after the rest of his family dies. He also claims that he studies at Oxford University before traveling across Europe and living like royalty. According to Gatsby, he later joins the war and courageously defeats many enemies by himself.
I was brought up in America but educated at Oxford because all my family died. I ran into a great deal of
single-handedly defeating the German army.
During the drive, Gatsby asks Nick for a favor, but refuses to explain the details immediately. Instead, he mentions that Jordan will reveal everything later. After reaching the city, Gatsby and Nick visit a luxurious salon where they meet Gatsby's business partner. Gatsby knocks on a hidden wall, and a secret doorway suddenly opens behind it, leading them into a private place hidden there. The three men sit together and spend some time talking privately. Eventually, Gatsby's business partner leaves the table, allowing Gatsby to finally begin discussing the favor he wants from Nick. However, before Gatsby can properly explain the situation, Tom unexpectedly appears and calls out to Nick from nearby. Gatsby also meets Tom, but his uncomfortable expression clearly reveals that he dislikes the encounter. While Nick becomes distracted speaking with Tom, Gatsby disappears from the place without anyone noticing. That evening, Nick meets Jordan again, and she finally reveals the hidden truth behind Gatsby's strange behavior. Jordan explains that Gatsby wants Nick to invite Daisy to his house for tea so Gatsby can secretly meet her again. She reveals that 5 years earlier, Gatsby and Daisy were deeply in love before Gatsby left to fight in the war. During Gatsby's absence, Daisy met Tom, and their marriage was eventually arranged. However, on the morning of the wedding, Daisy received a letter from Gatsby. At first, Daisy refused to marry Tom, but later she changed her decision and married Tom that same evening. Jordan explains that Gatsby buys his huge mansion only because it stands directly across from Daisy's house. He throws huge parties every weekend, hoping Daisy might eventually attend one of them.
Coincidence. He bought that house's parties hoping she'd wander in one night.
When Nick finally returns home, he finds Gatsby waiting for him once again. Nick eventually informs Gatsby that he will invite Daisy for tea the day after tomorrow. The moment Gatsby hears the news, he becomes excited and overwhelmed with happiness. Gatsby even offers Nick a partnership in one of his side businesses, but Nick politely declines the offer. The following morning, Nick wakes up and notices his yard beautifully decorated. The next day, heavy rain pours from the sky as Gatsby arrives nervously with his servants and flowers just before Daisy's arrival. Just as Gatsby begins losing confidence, Daisy's car finally arrives outside Nick's house. The moment Daisy enters the room, she becomes impressed by the beautiful flower covering the entire place. Nick quickly goes searching for Gatsby. When Nick opens the door, he finds Gatsby standing outside, desperately trying to gather enough courage to come back inside. When Gatsby and Daisy finally stand face to face after 5 years apart, both of them become emotional. After some time, Nick brings tea for them. Gatsby feels extremely nervous and accidentally knocks over Nick's clock, almost breaking it completely. While trying to fix it, he nearly drops it once again. Realizing the two need privacy, Nick decides to leave the room for a while. He waits outside alone in the heavy rain while Gatsby and Daisy spend time together. When Nick finally returns, he immediately notices that Gatsby and Daisy now feel comfortable around each other. Nick intentionally announces his presence by informing them that the rain has stopped. Soon afterward, the three of them visit Gatsby's mansion together, and Gatsby proudly shows Daisy all the memories he carefully preserves for the last 5 years, including flowers she once gives him, old photographs, and personal letters written by her long ago. During this emotional moment, the telephone suddenly rings and Gatsby answers harshly at first. But as soon as he notices Nick listening nearby, he abruptly hangs up the call. Later, Gatsby finally reveals the truth about his real past to Nick. He explains that he is actually born into a poor family and runs away from home at only 10 years old. Years later, he notices a wealthy millionaire's boat trapped in a storm. Gatsby manages to save both the boat and the millionaire alcoholic owner. For the next 5 years, Gatsby lives beside the millionaire, learning everything about high society, including how to dress properly, speak confidently, and behave like a gentleman. Since the millionaire has no wife or children, Gatsby believes he will eventually inherit the entire fortune. However, after the millionaire dies, his relatives manipulate the legal system and make sure Gatsby receives nothing at all. Once again, Gatsby becomes poor and alone. The only valuable thing he gains from those years is the knowledge and manners of wealthy society. However, Gatsby suddenly reappears as a millionaire, and newspapers everywhere begin publishing about him.
He rowed out and rescued the vessel. Alcoholic millionaire Dan Cody.
Taught me everything.
How to dress, act, and speak
Gatsby.
like a gentleman.
One day, Tom and Daisy attend one of Gatsby's grand parties together. Tom quickly returns to his usual habits and starts flirting with a model at the event. Unknown to Tom, Gatsby secretly arranges for the model to distract him intentionally. While Tom remains occupied, Gatsby quietly leaves the party with Daisy. Nick notices them walking away together far from the crowd. During their private moment, Daisy emotionally urges Gatsby to run away with her. Hearing this deeply changes Gatsby's expression because every part of his life, including his mansion, wealth, and reputation, exists only because of Daisy. Gatsby refuses and insists they must openly reveal the truth to Tom.
Just run away.
Daisy, darling, it's time to tell Tom.
Back inside the party, Tom begins searching for Daisy and questions Nick about her. Eventually, Tom finds them together. Just then, one of Gatsby's servants arrives to inform him that his business partner is waiting. Daisy later returns home with Tom, but Tom now becomes suspicious about Gatsby. After that, Gatsby completely stops hosting parties, while Daisy secretly continues visiting his mansion. One day, Gatsby contacts Nick and informs him that he fires all his servants because he does not want anyone spreading rumors about him and Daisy. Gatsby explains that the following day, he plans to visit Tom's house together with Daisy, where they will finally reveal the truth about their relationship. Gatsby also requests Nick to come with them for support. The next day, everyone gathers inside Tom's house, but the atmosphere immediately feels uncomfortable. Gatsby prepares himself to reveal everything openly, yet before he can speak properly, Daisy suddenly becomes nervous and suggests that they should all leave for the city instead. As Gatsby and Daisy exchange a silent look, Tom understands the situation. Daisy appears ready to confess her feelings, but Tom quickly interrupts the situation and insists that everyone should leave for the city now.
Yo, let's all go to town.
I changed my mind. Come on, Jordan.
As they prepare to leave, Tom deliberately tells Gatsby to drive the famous yellow custom-made car, even though Gatsby explains that the vehicle is running low on fuel. Tom mentions that they can refill it on the way. Meanwhile, Gatsby and Daisy leave together inside Tom's blue car. During the journey, Tom stops at George's garage, who reveals that he and Myrtle are planning to leave the city very soon. Tom understands that George finally discovers Myrtle's affair and now keeps her trapped inside the house. Later, all of them gather inside a large hotel room in the city. Gatsby finally reveals that he and Daisy love each other. Tom immediately refuses to accept it. Gatsby asks Daisy to admit that she never truly loves Tom at all. However, Tom begins reminding Daisy about their marriage and their shared memories. Confused and nervous, Daisy finally admits that she loves both men.
Mr. Nobody from nowhere make love to your wife.
She never loved you. You see, she loves me.
I did love him once, but I loved you too.
Hearing this completely shatters Gatsby because he spends years believing Daisy belongs only to him. Even so, Daisy still appears willing to leave Tom and remain with Gatsby. At that moment, Tom suddenly exposes the truth behind Gatsby's wealth and lifestyle. He reveals that Gatsby becomes rich through illegal business activities connected to a man named Meyer Wolfsheim. Tom exposes that Gatsby and his partner are involved in bootlegging and manipulating the stock market. Hearing this, Gatsby loses control of his emotions. Furious and humiliated, he nearly attacks Tom and even raises his hand toward him. Daisy becomes upset after seeing this side of Gatsby. She immediately requests to leave and return home. Tom now feels confident that Daisy will never abandon him after discovering the truth about Gatsby's criminal life. Therefore, he orders Gatsby and Daisy to leave together in Gatsby's yellow car. On the other hand, Myrtle desperately attempts to escape from George's control. She breaks free from him and runs out toward the road. Just then, she notices Gatsby's yellow car speeding toward her, hoping to stop the car. However, Gatsby's car moves too quickly, and it loses its control. Gatsby fails to avoid Myrtle and crashes directly into her, and Myrtle dies instantly on the road. However, Gatsby does not stop and quickly drives away from the scene. Soon afterward, Tom, Nick, and Jordan also pass through the same road and notice a huge crowd gathered there. When they step closer, Tom sees Myrtle's lifeless body lying inside. Everyone around them continues discussing the mysterious yellow custom-made car responsible for the deadly accident. George begins shouting that the car belongs to Tom because Tom stops there earlier that morning for fuel.
I know what kind of car it was.
I know what kind of car it was. I know what kind of car. That yellow car wasn't mine. You hear?
Tom immediately pulls George aside and explains that the yellow car is not actually his vehicle. When a police officer questions Tom about his own car, Tom points toward his blue vehicle parked nearby and explains that he has only just returned from the city. Several witnesses nearby also confirm seeing Tom arrive only moments earlier. However, Tom manipulates George by revealing that the yellow custom-made car belongs to Gatsby, the wealthy millionaire known for hosting extravagant parties. Tom intentionally suggests that Gatsby is secretly involved with Myrtle and kills her while trying to escape after the accident. After that, they all finally reach Tom's house, while Nick remains outside waiting for a taxi. Suddenly, he hears Gatsby's voice coming from the bushes nearby. Furious about the accident, Nick confronts Gatsby, but Gatsby reveals that Daisy is actually the one driving the yellow car during the accident. Gatsby explains that he fears Tom might harm Daisy after learning the truth, which is why he secretly waits outside to make sure she remains safe. Nick enters the house to check on Daisy and Tom. Inside, he discovers that Daisy already confesses everything about the accident to Tom. However, Tom promises to protect her no matter what happens. Nick notices that the two of them appear united once again. He becomes deeply troubled because he now realizes Daisy is never truly going to leave Tom and return to Gatsby. Even so, he cannot force himself to reveal this painful truth to Gatsby directly. Instead, Nick advises Gatsby to leave the city immediately before the situation becomes even more dangerous. However, Gatsby refuses to leave because he still believes Daisy will contact him the next morning and eventually run away with him forever. The following morning, Gatsby shares with Nick that his real name is James Gatz. He explains that on the morning of Daisy's wedding, he sends her a heartfelt letter promising he will return only after becoming wealthy and successful enough to deserve her love. However, Daisy never waits for him and eventually marries Tom instead.
The reason why after the war I asked her to wait until I made something of my...
It was all for her.
After that, when Nick leaves for work, Gatsby stays behind at the mansion relaxing in his swimming pool, desperately waiting for Daisy's phone call. Suddenly, the telephone begins ringing loudly inside the house. Hearing the sound, Gatsby immediately looks toward Daisy's home across the water and smiles with hope. A servant rushes to answer the phone, and just then, a gunshot suddenly echoes throughout the mansion. George secretly arrives at Gatsby's estate and shoots Gatsby dead. Immediately afterward, George turns the gun on himself and commits suicide as well. During his final moments, Gatsby whispers Daisy's name, staring toward the green light shining near Daisy's house across the water. However, the phone call ringing inside the mansion is not from Daisy at all. It is actually Nick trying to contact Gatsby. Through the phone, Nick hears the terrifying gunshot echoing in the background. Soon afterward, newspapers across the city begin blaming Gatsby for everything, and Gatsby's reputation becomes completely destroyed after his death. Nick desperately tries to defend Gatsby's reputation, but nobody truly cares about him anymore. Later, Nick contacts many wealthy people who once attended Gatsby's luxurious parties, but not a single one of them appears at the funeral. In the end, Gatsby truly has only one loyal friend, Nick himself. After Gatsby's death, New York City begins feeling completely empty and meaningless to Nick. On his final night there, Nick walks through Gatsby's abandoned mansion, reflecting on Gatsby's ability to hope. Back to the present, Nick finishes typing his memoir and titles it The Great Gatsby.